Hello everyone, welcome. This is SharePoint Power Hour. This is our weekly show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central, SharePoint Power Hour. This is our team at Rackspace of our SharePoint consulting team and a couple of extras today because we're going to be doing PowerShell today. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Laura Rogers. Power Hour is about, usually we talk about things that mostly power users can do, things that you can do without having to write code or being a server admin. This is the 100-something episode, about 108th episode that we've had. So they're all out there on our YouTube channel, SharePoint RAX, and you can watch them anytime. They just stream live and then go straight to the YouTube channel. There are a whole bunch of different topics out there. So I know we usually say we're not doing server admin stuff, but today I've actually been delving into PowerShell for the past month or so. I hadn't really done much with it ever before, and it's really fun, and I've had a really great time, and so I wanted to share my findings with you all. I'm definitely not a PowerShell expert, so we do have several people here that know a lot more about PowerShell than I do. So, of course, Steven on our team, I don't know where he is right now, but Steven on our team does a lot with PowerShell on a day-to-day basis. And then additionally, we have Todd Clint today and Jason Himmelstein. I always pronounce your name wrong. And then, and so I did put together a little PowerPoint to go over some basics, but I kind of want to give you a little background as to why, why PowerShell. So what I'm doing is we have site provisioning and for users to be able to just go ahead and request a site whenever they would like a SharePoint site, and we have a simple little PowerShell that simply creates a site for them and sends them a URL and says, here's an email that says here's all the information about your site, and go, and now you have a site collection, and now you're the site collection owner. So what I'm doing is I've been working on a PowerShell script to just sort of improve the site provisioning process. So not only am I simply creating a site, but I'm doing some extra things with permissions, doing some extra things with the settings and the groups in there, and adding different SharePoint groups for permissions. I'm creating several different lists and libraries and changing the settings in the lists and libraries. And I'm even editing the home page and putting certain web parts on it that I want people to immediately be able to have on their page instead of the generic ones that you get. And so I want people to be able to pick from having a publishing site or a team site, and then I have the script actually doing different things depending on which type of site it is. It enables features automatically. It does stuff with the theme and the colors as well. So I've had a lot of fun really delving into creating that and figuring it out. I started off with a script that a guy named Jonathan Cochran wrote that he presented it at our Birmingham SharePoint user group. So that's what I started with as the basis for what I've been doing, and I've just kind of added on to it. I've probably tripled the size of it in the past month or so since I've been working on it. But the reason I'm doing this on Power Hour is that a lot of us power users, we do a lot of things with managing sites and managing lists and libraries and settings and things all the time, but the things that I've discovered that you can do with PowerShell, it's just amazing, all the little intricate nitty-gritty things that you can do that I didn't realize, such as putting web parts on pages and changing settings and views in your lists and libraries, and even putting items in them. So, I mean, kind of my idea of PowerShell before was, you can write a script that will create a bunch of sites, or you can write a script that will go, add users to a site, or list all the users on a site, or create scripts that will give you information like that, just list all the site collections and subsites in your environment, and things like that that admins do for more sort of admin sort of tasks having to do with server administration and farm administration. So those were that's kind of the idea that I had, that I don't really have any use for that because I'm not really a server administrator anymore. I haven't been since SharePoint 2007, before PowerShell came along with SharePoint. But anyway, so a lot of these little fun things I've been discovering I wanted to share with you. But I did put together a little information about some basics, just some basics about PowerShell and just how to get in there and how to get around, because a lot of the times when you're Googling things or Binging things and trying to find information about how to do something in PowerShell or just in any kind of code in SharePoint, the person writing the blog post or answering the forum question or whatever it is usually has the assumption that you've already done several things on the server level to get to the command, to get to the command prompt and things like that. So we're going to go over some basics just of how to get to it and how to do it even in Office 365. You can do a lot of the same things, not exactly all the same commands, but a lot of them. So we're going to go over some basics, and then I brought in our extra super gurus, Jason and Todd, to be able to correct me because I don't really know what I'm talking about with PowerShell. And I know Todd will be the first one to just slap me on the wrist and just, tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. So again, I've been just kind of figuring a lot of this out as I go and just binging and reading other people's blogs and things like that. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll have a little yellow link that lets you go over to the Google Hangout, and that's where the Q&A is. So if you're looking at us in the Google Hangout, you'll have a little icon towards the top right that's got some little squares. So those are sort of the little apps you can flip between. By default, it's got the Showcase app, which is a little yellow tag, and that's where I've shared some links with you. I've shared some links to the PowerShell information for Office 365 and a couple of other different posts and helpful things that I found along the way. And also that's where you can get to the Q&A app, so you can flip back from the Showcase to the Q&A app using those little squares, and that's where you can ask us questions. So that's the fun thing about doing this live streaming, is that we can have a conversation and we can have questions along the way. So I will go ahead and kick off my PowerPoint. Oh, you know what? I didn't let everybody introduce themselves yet. I got so excited about PowerShell. So let's go ahead and I'm going to, the order that you guys are in at the bottom of my screen, we'll just go, let's see, it's Corey, then Jason, then Ryan, then Tanya, then Tavis, and then Todd. And go.
All right. So I always end up going first because I always join this thing first. I got to stop doing
maybe
that.
It's alphabetical. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Corey, as you can see in my lower third. I'm on Laura's team. I've been doing SharePoint for like 10 years, and I do out-of-the-box stuff. Although PowerShell is fun. I enjoy it. I've played around with it a little bit. And, yeah, I got a new view. I got a new desk. Woo! That's all I got.
So I guess that kicks it over to me. Hopefully you guys can hear me. All right. So my name is Jason Himmelstein. I am a Racker as well. I am the Office 365 Advisory Services Manager here at Rackspace. And for the past number of years, I've been a Microsoft technologist. When PowerShell came along, I hopped on the bandwagon pretty early, fell in love with it, and when I'm out in the community, I try to teach as much as I can about PowerShell, a lot of the basic stuff, because it's an awful lot of fun to get to play with and to tinker with. In fact, on this computer over here, right now I have somebody from the service desk at Rackspace trying to fix something on my computer, and I gave them some PowerShell to be able to help me solve some of the problems that I'm running into. So it's a lot of fun. Corporate images, gotta love them. So I apologize for the awkward view in my office today. Normally you'd see the awesome cat and bed behind me, but this time you get a different view. So that's me.
Hi everybody, I'm Ryan Keller. I am the branding guy on the SharePoint team here at Rackspace. So that means that I make SharePoint look different. I've been doing SharePoint for, I don't know, what year is it anymore? Like 8-ish years, 8.5 years now. I don't know, I'm starting to lose track. Been doing branding for like maybe 5 or 6 of those years. I guess that's about it. I'm from Colorado, and maybe my New Year's resolution this year will be to do some more branding power hours. So maybe you'll see me a little bit more.
Let's see, Tanya, you're next, and then Tavis, then Todd.
Yeah, mute myself. I'm Tanya Kaiser. I'm the SharePoint Program Manager for our internal SharePoint environments here at Rackspace. I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas at our headquarters, which we call the Castle. A lot of the stuff that we talk about on Power Hour are things that I put in place every day. So as Laura mentioned, any Racker can go and self-provision a site, and we try to encourage them to use all the out-of-the-box components. We do have our engineers who do a lot of stuff in PowerShell. I tend to stay far away from it because I think I'll break something. So hoping to learn a little bit today too.
Hello, I am Tavis Lovell, and I'm the Business Intelligence Developer on the Business Solutions team. I've been with Rackspace for about 3 years, and I am based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Technically Kentucky, but I'm claiming Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've done surprisingly little with PowerShell, actually. I've ran some scripts people have given me to get things done, and I think I've modified a few of those very lightly to better suit my needs, but I would definitely call myself a PowerShell noob at this point. So hoping to learn something.
And bringing up the rear, I'm Todd Clint. I've been doing SharePoint since Friday of last week. I'm at Rackspace. I work with these yahoos, and I don't have anything better going on, so I'm here. I heard there was going to be snacks. I'm waiting for the snacks. The snacks haven't showed up. Oh, and I'm in the huge Ames, Iowa Rackspace office. That's where I'm at.
And for the record, you are wearing your badge in the Ames office.
Yeah, we take security very seriously here at the Ames office, so I am wearing my badge around my neck. The security guys won't let me into my office without
You're a dork.
but I'm a lovable dork. I'm
Yeah, what he said. Okay. All right, I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna share my screen in here. Crack me up. Share. Okay, so, and I made it so it hides everyone's faces at the bottom. All right, so PowerShell Basics, I created this today. Oh, can you unmute yourselves? All right, so the agenda is we're going to talk about some basic concepts and getting around, just basically getting to PowerShell, and then some syntax concepts, variables. Variables are so much fun. There's lots of cool stuff you can do with those. You probably had no idea. And then just what's possible, just like some of the things that I rattled off earlier that I was doing with site provisioning, just kind of let your mind expand as to what you can do. Of course, you have to make friends with your server admin. That's probably the first thing you need to do if you're not a SharePoint server admin, right? All right, so some basic concepts. We have the SharePoint management shell, which we have to be able to get into, and we have to be able to run these PowerShell, these SharePoint commands. And then once we get in there, we have some concepts like commands, which are basically, it gives you SharePoint things that you can do in PowerShell, such as creating sites, getting a list of features, creating webs, which are subsites, and a whole plethora, a long list of things that you can do with SharePoint. Nouns, commandlets, and objects. Yeah, I don't really have a great explanation for what those are.
Ooh, pick me. So, my camera's not on, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. I'm always nervous. I never know when I can pick my nose or whatever. So it's so one of the things that it was different for me. I've been doing SharePoint for a while, like I said, since at least last week. The old days, the dark days when dinosaurs ruled the earth and PowerShell wasn't in SharePoint yet, we had to use a command line tool called STSADM, or for the old time folks, OWSADM or whatever it was. And it was easy to use. It was built explicitly for SharePoint, so it only did SharePointy things. But the other thing that was great about it is it only took text. It only took strings of text, so it was really easy to deal with. And PowerShell came around, and it was not SharePoint specific, so it got very complicated. But the other thing that PowerShell does is deal with objects, which is scary for us non-developers. But the fact that it deals with objects is one of the things that makes it super handy. So whenever I'm talking to folks that aren't programmers, which is the people I prefer to talk to who's not programmers. I feel it's important to talk about objects and what an object is, because you're going to see this inside of PowerShell and it can get kind of confusing. I have to be honest, this definition I'm going to use is one that I stole from somebody else, but I can't remember who, so I would give them credit, except I can't. So it's all me. I came up with this. So when I'm talking to folks about objects, I like to tell them that objects are like a car. I like to use the car analogy for objects. So this car here, this is an object, and it is an object of the type car. So obviously there are a lot of objects that are like this. In SharePoint parlance, think of like an SP site as an object. An SP site is a thing, it's a site collection, but there are lots of other site collections. So what makes this particular object special? Why do we need to understand that this is an object? The thing about objects is they have methods and properties, whereas text didn't. When we had to deal with text with STS-ADM, we could blindly ignore all this stuff. But objects have methods and properties, and that's what makes them cool. So a method is something you can do. So with this object, this car object, I can open the doors, I can start it, I can squeal the tires, I can drive it off a cliff, I can do whatever. These are things that I can do with this object that are built into the object. So once you learn how to do something with an SP site and a site collection, that method will always exist for all of the site collections that you deal with. So that's good. The other thing that this object has is properties, and that's something about the object. So color could equal black, cool could equal true, number of doors can equal 2, T-tops can equal true, things like that. But these are all properties of the object of type site collection. And that lets you know what things you can search for. You can search for the owner of a site collection. An owner is one of the properties. The template type is a property of the SP web type. So if you're looking for all the blogs or wikis or whatever, but understanding that this thing that you get back when you do get SP site, it looks like text on your screen, but it's really objects that you can manipulate and sort and group and all that. That's really important, and that is like the basis of PowerShell. And for us non-programmers, objects get really confusing because we don't know what an object is. We think of site collections and text. But I always like to think of my objects as a car, specifically a really cool car. Back to you, Laura.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. Wow, I like the car analogy. That's perfect. Jason, did you have anything to add about what nouns, commandlets, and objects are?
Well, it's more about syntax for me. Understanding that the whole world of PowerShell is verb noun. Do something to something, and then get something back. Is as simple a way as I can put it. Just from a straightforward perspective, I want to get something, and it's going to return something to me, and that something is something I could do something with. A lot of somethings in my world makes life a lot easier to break it down in such a fashion. But the nouns are, when I write my PowerShell, which oftentimes is so I can hack at something that I want to change. I want to do something differently and make it as simple as possible and repeatable. Using the standard set of verbs is easy because Microsoft has a standard set of verbs. These are the only verbs that we use. But the nouns can be anything. So when I go off and create a new widget, I just can name it anything I want. So the noun functionality is generic. It can be anything you want it to be. When you're dealing in the commandlets that Microsoft gives you or that other providers give you, you will find that it's a lot easier because they give you something that is fairly intuitive. Get SP site, gets you a SharePoint site, things of that nature. So making your nouns as you start to write your own scripts something that's intuitive is definitely worthwhile. And there's really not a huge, you're not going to have 256 characters in your noun, so you can name it whatever you want and make it something that is intuitive to you and to someone else who may reuse your script as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I started creating silly variable names like monkeys and cupcakes and stuff, and then I came to the realization that that was fun and all, but other people aren't going to know what that means.
I want to add something to Jason's thing. If you're making your own commandlets and making your own nouns, kind of the convention that the PowerShell community has landed on is that you want to put a prefix on your noun. So get SP site is a great example. Site is a thing, but site could be anything. It could be an IIS site. It could be whatever. So the SharePoint team put a prefix on SP site. And if I want to create a new noun for a new commandlet that's something special for me, I would put like TK SP site. And that way, that's kind of the convention that everybody uses in the PowerShell community to keep that all straight if you write your own commandlets functions.
Oh, cool. Good to know. All right, I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go into PowerShell. So there are several things. If you're using Office 365 and you want to do this, I put the link to PowerShell.office.com on in the little showcase, or you can just listen to the word I said and type that in.
Hey, Laura, can I throw one more thing out around nouns?
Yeah.
Microsoft has done a good job of actually specifying. So as Todd said, when he writes his own, he'll use TK dash. Microsoft has specific characters that they use. So for SharePoint, it's always going to be SP. For Azure, it's always going to be AZ. Things of that nature. So it's nice and easy. You can actually go off and query and find all of the PowerShell commandlets that are specific to SharePoint, and go off and look for them. And just by doing a search specifically for that variable SP variable, and find it that way. So makes life a lot easier. Microsoft is doing it, therefore it must be perfect.
Thank you, Microsoft. Okay, now some of you, especially power users like me, might be wondering what in the world we're talking about so far. So I'm on a server right now. Hopefully you can see my screen, and I'll go ahead and hide everybody else there. I'm in a virtual machine. I don't know if I need to change my resolution. That might actually be pertinent for the way this YouTube ends up, but no, it can't be changed from a remote session. Okay, whatever. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up PowerShell. Now, one thing you can do is you can go you can just type PowerShell like that. You can type, if I type SharePoint, you're going to see that SharePoint when you install SharePoint on your server, it puts this management shell on your server for you. So it's really easy to just run this on your server because it's already there. Now, there are ways that you can run some of this stuff remotely, like from your desktop, to run commands on a server, but you have to do some extra settings for that I'm not going to delve into. But I was doing this management shell, and I had, clicked Run as Administrator. I knew that much, and I was doing commands in the management shell, and I was trying stuff out. And Todd just happened to be sitting next to me, and he's like, you can use this other thing, this ISE thing. Why aren't you using that? I'm like, well, what is that? I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing, Todd. So, so he showed me that there's this Windows PowerShell ISE thing that you can run instead, which gives you a lot richer interface to be able to do what you're doing. So, thank you, Todd. So whatever you're running to get to PowerShell, you need to right-click and run it as an administrator. That helps dramatically. Adam said, really glad you guys chose to use PowerShell for this Power Hour. It's great to get the word out that PowerShell isn't just for server admins. Awesome. Thanks so much. All right. So now I'm at this PowerShell ISE, and if I have a script, I could put it up here at this top, but by default it's not necessarily going to show the script pane. It's just going to show this command line, but I can do the script pane. That way if I have a script, and I'll show you some of that too, you can either just run the whole thing or go run little parts of it, and it's kind of fun. All right, so the first thing I do is right now this is just PowerShell for Windows. It doesn't have the SharePoint commands in it like it does when you just run that SharePoint shell. So I have to do this add PS snap-in Microsoft SharePoint PowerShell. And once I do that, this little cool ISE tool has all these little modules. I think I can zoom in on this. It's nice. And it has a list of SharePoint. These are all the SharePoint commands that we were talking about. A lot of them have this SP. They all have the SP, get SP something, or new SP something. And that's where, in this tool, that's where you can just see them all. And you can even click on one, new SP site, and you can immediately see what the required, what would those be called, methods in there? The required methods?
Properties.
Properties, okay. So when I do a new SP site, I have to have an owner and I have to have a URL, but those are the only two required properties. All this other stuff these are all things that you can set up in your new site, but they're not required. You can have your owner's email address. You can say what template the site needs to be. You can say, who's your secondary owner, all this extra stuff. But so that's kind of where you can see what some of these SharePoint commands are and get around. I found, though, that as I was doing this script that I've been working on, I didn't use these much. Like once I created a site and I was in that site, I was doing a lot of little commands like within the libraries and things like that, but I wasn't doing a whole bunch of these. I was, because these are like, it's got big things like creating sites, and it's got getting users, getting features, getting solutions, service applications, a lot of things like that. But what I was doing in the site was a lot of just, I guess you could say, more granular things. So I don't know. I'm going to start off by just doing when you do get SB site. See how it like starts writing it for me and guessing what I'm going to type. And look how cool, when I hover over it, it even gives me some examples of what I could do with get SB site. So it's got kind of some of these same things in there as a little hint. If I just do get SB site, though, it's gonna just show me all my sites. Now these are site collections. So in PowerShell, a site is a site collection and a web is a subsite. Or the root site's just one site. It's not a whole site collection. Is that a good way of explaining it? So get SB site just shows me a list of sites. But think about, my favorite one is I like the new SP site. So I can go look at it over here. I can see like new SP site and see what it looks like. Oh, that's the one I picked. You have to have an owner and a URL. If I do new SP site and I don't have the required parameter or required properties in there, it's going to ask me what those properties are. So it's going to make me fill in at least those two. So the URL, let's see, my URL is the first one. I'm going to grab that. It's like I've got a very ugly server name, so let's just paste it in there, /test2. That's going to be my site collection URL. And then who's the owner? Put administrator. And y'all feel free to interrupt me as I talk, because I just continuously talk.
So one of the nice things about PowerShell ISE is the function of the top band there, the big white band above the blue box. Being able to go ahead and, Laura, if you were to move up into that space and start typing your commands up here. This is ISE stands for Integrated Scripting Environment. So this gives us the ability to actually write our code the same way that developers would. Sorry, I don't mean to equate anybody here to being a developer. But making it so that it can be repeatable. So if you do space and then hit dash and then tab,
Okay.
It'll actually complete for you. So a lot of different things you can do with tab complete here as well. So it'll give you that ability. You can actually go ahead and start filling it out. You can see all of the different properties that go along with this, this particular command. And so you can say, what are the things that are required? You can actually see that by when you did the hover over. You can also see it in the commands pane on the right. But lots of different things that you can do here. And then if you have a larger script, you can do two different things. You can actually go in and say, I want to run this entire thing, and hit the play button that's just above, the big green play button, or the button directly to its right. So that would be F5, I believe it is, to hit to run the entire thing.
Yeah, or just what you selected. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can highlight a section of code that you want to run and actually just run that snippet, that section. So it allows you the ability, rather than having to go retype everything the same way that you would in the command line interface below, you can actually just snippet pieces here and work with it and get your script perfected, save it off, and actually go off and work with it. There are a few limitations of the ISE. So it's always recommended to go ahead and do your writing in the ISE, do some testing here, but when you're actually going to run things, make sure that you're running them over in the command line interface, the actual PowerShell interface, because once you get beyond about 3 pipelines, things start to break down. There are other commandlets that just don't work properly over here in the ISE. Now that we're in PowerShell v5, I think that they've improved that, and it's getting better. But definitely something you'll need to take a look at. You're going to want to put the name in quotes there, Laura.
I was going to ask you that. I was just about to ask you that. Yeah.
So, but lots of different things you can do here. Todd, it looks like you were about to overlay some knowledge.
Well, not necessarily knowledge, but one of the things that I do, because I'm not very good at PowerShell, and what normally happens is I'll get some bright idea for something I want to do in PowerShell, and I'll spend way too long trying to figure out how to do it. I'll get it done, I'll think I'm the smartest man on earth, and then like a day later I'll want to do it again, and all of that knowledge will have leaked out of my ear at night. And so then I have to start from scratch. So one of the tricks that I learned early on when trying to hone my PowerShell skills is a command called start transcript.
Ooh.
And start transcript keeps a transcript, as you can imagine, of all of the things that you type and all of the things that PowerShell says back to you. And I found that transcript has been a great way for me to go back after I figured something out to not have to reinvent the wheel. So 2 things. Number 1 is start-transcript, because it's action-noun.
That's true.
The other thing is it doesn't work in the ISE. It doesn't work in this version of the ISE. It works in V5.
Okay.
So Jason was talking about, some things you do in the ISE, some things you do in the window. I find if it's something that I might want to replay later, I'll have to do it in the window so that I can do the transcript piece. But for beginners, that is great because it keeps a log of all the things that you've tried, so you can go back through. It's also a great CYA thing if you're worried about, people thinking you did something. But transcripts are great. I highly recommend them.
Cool. Well, so kind of as you can see, I'm doing like a bunch of. Do I have to put everything in quotes? Let's see, admin at.
If it's got spaces, that you don't have to.
If it's got spaces, okay. Does it hurt if it doesn't have spaces?
Nope.
Okay, so I did template, and you can pick, quota template, all kinds of stuff like that, compatibility level. So let's see. I'll show you what the site looks like. Let's see. So I'm just in the little, I'm just writing a script up here. So it doesn't actually do something when I hit enter. I can just write the next line. But if I want to play everything that's in here and make it go, I can, see I didn't put owner alias in my little line of code that I wrote here. So now it's like you have to have that. Like that's important. It's required.
So you can hit the red box up there, which is the stop button.
Oh, the stop button.
And that'll stop it for you, or you can just type it into the lower blue box there as well, which is the command line interface.
Oh, okay. I still do Control-C, like from
from the green screen days. Yeah. One other thing I wanted to kick in since we talked about quotes. Your script, so you're going to talk about variables later.
Yeah.
Variables are super important in PowerShell. PowerShell then gets in this weird thing when you start using quotes and variables for values. Do you mean the variable name or do you mean the variable value? So we can get into which is which and all that kind of stuff, but for the beginning PowerShell folks, the thing to keep in mind is if you use one type of quotes, like double quotes, and the script you've got variables involved and the script doesn't work the way you think it's supposed to, try to replace them with single quotes and try again, because double quotes expand the variable, single quotes do not, and there's different ways to handle that. But it's not important, I guess, to remember which is which. Just remember if it doesn't do it right one way, try the other way.
Okay. So I can just push play, and now it's actually running this one line of code, and then it'll tell me when it's done. So I'll actually have a site with a little more information about it. And then, so after this site is created, I want to show. I guess I want to kind of dig in. I have a couple more slides I only have 2 more slides, but. I want to go ahead and dig into this concept of variables because that seemed to be, as I was doing this, one of the most powerful things to understand. I mean, there's a lot of course, cool, SharePoint commands over here to be able to kind of flip through and kind of see what they all are, but being able to use variables to me was really powerful. So, all right, so it created my site here, and so let me go ahead and just finish my concept. So I gave some information about getting around. So for on-premises, I showed you how to get to the management shell. Office 365, you have stuff you have to install to be able to get that management shell on your computer. And then, instead of running, kind of went over Windows PowerShell ISE instead of just going straight into the built-in management shell. And then syntax, it's got just a couple of little bit basic information about how you can just get a list of all the commands, and get SP site is a common one, new SP site is a common one. Get member will list all of the information about that command. So it's get SP site.
Yeah, so that lists all the properties and methods that I talked about.
Okay.
And that's a place, that's a lot of fun. You can get yourself into a hell of a lot of trouble there, and that's where the fun is, because once you get your first SP site and you like echo it out, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool, and then you pipe it through get member and you're like, I can change that. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And you start tweaking things. So that's where the fun is, get member.
So is it like, so that just lists a whole bunch of like properties right there, just showing what all the members are having to do with the site.
Yeah,
but
so
once you get down to the web level, it's even more fun than the site stuff.
Yeah.
So all right, so let me go back over to my slides. All right, and then variables, this is where I was gonna go next. Use any object as a variable also to use it later on. For example, you can use this is very commonly used. The web is a single SharePoint site or subsite. Of course, like I said, you could call it anything. You could call it a cupcake, but generally when you're looking online and people are writing scripts, and they generally use web.
And that's actually what I normally call Jason is cupcake. He likes it. He responds well to it. So
factually accurate, yes.
So this is one that I use all the time. I say site URL is, and I've just put the URL in quotes, and then I say I create a little variable called web, and I say web equals get SP web of this site. So then once I type in PowerShell the $web dot, once you type the dot, then you have all kinds of more cool stuff you can do with that web. And so like I would do things like, get a document library, and then, call it, variable called documents, and do documents dot, and then I'm like, ooh, look at all the stuff I can do with this document library. I can do stuff with views, and I can do stuff with settings, and I can turn on, versioning and all kinds of neat stuff. So that's where I'll go do that next. Because usually when you're writing a script, you're going to have, like a variable like web that you can use just throughout the whole thing and use it all the time. So I just created, now you can use a variable as you're doing the new SP site, but since I already created it, I'll just do like the one I just typed in, like site URL equals, and I'll just put it in there. There are probably several different ways to do what I'm about to do, right guys?
There's always more than one way to do it.
Yeah. So now I created a variable called site URL. Now once I create a variable, if I just, it'll auto kind of guess it for me there, and I can just see what's in the variable like that, or write host and then see it. I don't know what the difference is between doing that or that, but either way I can see what's in my variable.
So go up, so hit up arrow twice, and then do space pipe get member. Yep. So that shows you, and then hit enter. That shows you the thing. I think if you do the right host, I think it just comes out as string or something else. So that's the difference between the two. One, you're spitting out the and that's the thing about PowerShell. It looks like text. You're like, oh, site URL, and it gives you text. It looks like text, but that's really PowerShell saying this is an object, but that person doesn't understand objects, so I'm just going to throw some text on the screen.
Yeah, right host is the same as echo back in the old command line days.
Yep.
Of course. So this is my favorite thing to do is I go get the web. So now that I have the web, what is that? That's the web. That's information about the site itself. So when I type web in here and do dot, look at all this. So it's got stuff about alerts. It's got all users, all properties, all roles for. I mean, like a bunch of different stuff in here. See, so you could just have a blast like going through to here and say, now see I do web.description, and remember it, I typed this is cool was the actual description of the site itself. So as soon as I pick one of these things and hit enter, it spits out what the what the answer to that is. So like web dot
URL.
we saw one. What was that?
Well, no, the web doesn't have URL.
There was one that Tanya and I found yesterday that was called like content last modified or something, like last item modified date. Now that would be useful to be able to, see how old the content is in there just real quick.
Yep. So there's and I know what you're thinking. You're like, hey, I can run this against the web and see the last time it was changed and all that. That works, but there's another one, last security modified date.
Oh, we were wondering what the difference was.
Yeah, so that's like if you add somebody new. So there you go. So there should be another one.
I think I know what you're talking about. I saw that. Oh, that was the site level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, that's when you do a site instead of a web. It had a few different little things in there. Now, so what I was doing with this script is, I was basically going in here and there's some. Let's just go ahead and go to the site and take a look at it real quick. So I'll just go to this URL real quick in my browser, and there's some basic things that people that I usually go do, like right when the site is brand new, like enable the workflow feature, which for some reason is not enabled by default, right? So like site collection administration. Now also I have a question about, like, if I go into the website and I'm clicking around on a web page or I'm changing settings in a library, does that do I have to somehow refresh over here? Like,
yes.
How does that? Is that the update thing?
No. So update. So what you're looking at is when you have that variable, is it by reference or by value? I guess is kind of what you're looking at. And PowerShell has a combination of the two, but the one you're having the problem with is by value. So when you grab that object, it takes a snapshot in time of that, and then you change stuff someplace else, and that doesn't change. So if you change it in the web, the way to get the new versions in the PowerShell is to just reassign the variable. So if you did web equals get sp web, Todd is cool, whatever, you just have to do that again. The update is going the other direction. The update is if I've made changes in PowerShell and I want to write them back, some objects require a .update, like the web application requires .update.
Cool. Okay, so we've got, see, workflows right here. So workflows, again, that annoys me that workflows aren't just enabled. So there's enable, SP feature, and then you have to know what the feature is that you want to. You have to know the identity of the feature. So that was hard for me. I had to go Google it. Well, I had to go do the list of all the features on the whole site, which is bajillion of them, more than you realize. And then I had to, go figure out how to type the name in the right place and all this stuff. So enable SP feature, and then the name of it. I have to have the URL. So that's my site URL that I already obtained. And then I have to give the name of it, identity, is, let's just say, can I just say workflows? I think. Did it right. So that just enabled workflows. So I should be able to go back over here and take a look, and ta-da, workflows are enabled. So that's one of the things I put in my script.
So I have to jump in, Laura. I have to leave.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
So the good news about that is, though, you won't have me stealing Jason's time when he's explaining things. So overlaying everything. But thanks, everybody. If you have questions, shoot me an email.
Todd's got a hot date with his wife.
I have a hot date, not with my wife. A very burly man named Lance. But see you guys later.
Okay. All right. Another thing that I really started digging into was the stuff that you can do with lists and libraries. So I'm going in even deeper into kind of the web information. So if I go web, look at this, I can go to lists. And that's going to give me all the lists and libraries in my web and all the information about them. So that's spitting out a whole bunch of crap that I really don't need. But I just want to go do stuff with that default document library. Oh my God, stop. So I want to do stuff with the default document library so I can get that specific one. So again, I don't know what the syntax is, Jason, because I've just been, you know, binging this and finding what other people write to get the documents. But, you know, like putting things in brackets.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just saying, you know, web lists where the name of it equals documents? Like, I'm not sure how it even knows that or how I would know to put it in
where
brackets.
brackets are used to denote optional elements or parameters. So if you have a parameter defined or an optional element, that's where you would use those. You know, curved braces are used for options, compulsory arguments, and control structures. Yes, I'm reading this. I have a slide that I use on a regular basis when I'm not talking. And curly braces are actually used for block expressions within a command block or used to open a code block. So, you know, lots of different bracketology out there, but that's, you know, where you've already specified what documents are, or documents are specified as an optional element. That's where that comes from.
Okay, so this part's really cool. So thanks, Jason. I went ahead and I'm typing all my stuff directly in the command lines. I don't really have time to write a script right now, but I just got a variable. I created a variable for documents. I'll do it again. I'll show you what I did. Ta-ta. Documents, my new variable that I'm making up, equals, it's the out of this website, a list called documents. Lists and libraries are all considered lists in here. So then once I got my documents variable, then I'm like, well, what is in there? Documents dot, ooh, look at all this information, all this stuff about this one document library now that I can do. Enable versioning. What is that? So right now, documents.enable versioning is false by default. So what if I want to set the versioning? So I can do like documents.enable versioning. Enable versioning. Got a lot of stuff that you can enable. Oh, you can enable moderation, which is like that content approval thing. Equals true. So right now it's false. I don't know why that's a, I guess true and false are just variables that always exist with the. So now it's true. I changed it to true. So now if I go to my default document library in my site, documents. I've only got like 10 minutes left, but I'm trying to kind of prove how cool this is to be able to do things en masse. Does anybody have any questions so far? We have a good bit of viewers, like a lot more than, you know, average, but let's go. So I enabled, let's see. Oh, you know what? I didn't say save, like to save my changes. So I enabled versioning and I changed it to true, but then I didn't like actually update the library and, you know, save my changes to the library. So I want to enable versioning, and I also want to do my major version limit. So I want it to put it like 20. Major version limit equals 20. And so now not only am I enabling versioning, I'm setting the version limit to 20, and then I'm going to do documents update. And update is an action, like Todd said. It's something that I'm doing to it. That's not an action. It's what's called something else. I'm calling it an action. Jason.
You're fine.
Now it should be, refresh that. Oh, look at that. Is that amazing or what? I should probably zoom in on that. Can't really see it that well. There we go. There we go. So there's my, see, my versioning got turned on. All right, and then I've got stuff like, I'll show you a script that a portion of a script of my actual site provisioning script, and I'm just going to paste it in here. So I'll just do delete what's in there and paste it. So this is just one little snippet of like 16 pages worth of script that I've been working on. So see, I'm saying I'm going to get that document library. I'm going to change enable version into true, major version limit to 20. I'm going to change enable folder creation to false. Y'all like that one? And then you know what I like to do is I don't like the friendly name stuff. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it says like yesterday instead of just the date, or it'll be like a few minutes ago. So I figured out how to go in here and do the get field by internal name and get the modified field and change this to friendly display format to disabled. So I figured out how to do that. And then I also, when I'm running my script, I plan on asking the end user what they would like their document library to be called as they're creating their site. So they're just that first document library has got, you know, something other than documents in every single site. So since I'm using this doc live name in the script, it doesn't have a value yet because I didn't run the part of the script yet that asks them, you know, what the name needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and set one. Name equals cupcakes. So now it's got a value in it. Y'all following me so far? All right. So now I'm going to see, is this going to be okay for me to run this? And I've also figured out, this took me forever, by the way, to figure this out, this enterprise keywords thing, because it's a lot more complicated than just regular settings. Anyway, I'm going to go run this and see what happens. All right, so it didn't give me any big red errors. It looks like it did all those things. Now, if I wanted to go just run one thing in here, just change the friendly display format, or, you know, just do an update, I could just select something and do run selection. That way you can, if you have a big long script, you can go just run little parts of it. Now let's go look over at my document library and see if it's called Cupcake now. Yep, it's called Cupcakes. So, and I can see that it's got some of the settings that I set up in here. Like if I go to advanced settings, it's going to have make new folder command available, no. Yeah, Andrew says, so I guess we know your vice is Cupcakes. So those of you who are more power user type people, does this seem like it's helpful at least to kind of know what's possible? Or know like the plethora of possibilities that there are, even if you're not necessarily doing server admin stuff every day. I'll show you a few little other examples of things that I'm doing in this script, as opposed to just running the whole thing.
So Laura, I'm going to have to get out of here in just a minute. I apologize. I have a call that butted up against this one I have to get prepped for. But before I go, can I drop one piece of suggestion and advice? Number one, well, there's actually two. Be careful with what you do, because you have the ability in PowerShell to destroy, decimate, eliminate, kill, maim, lots of things. And there's not an undo button on PowerShell. You are talking directly to the software. So be careful with what you do. And that's why writing things in an ISE is a great way to start. There's a great flag that someone just mentioned called -whatif. And some commands have that ability and some don't, so -whatif. But the other thing to do, if you're just getting started and you're just trying to learn a little bit about PowerShell, can you go into the command line there and type get-alias for me?
Get-alias?
Mm-hmm. So I love get-alias more as a learning tool than anything else. Get-alias, there's a lot of stuff that you will find that scripts out there are doing that look really weird. Like, what is RD? Let's remove -item. So you can create your own aliases, but this is a list of commands that Microsoft said these are regularly used. This is what most people are doing. So let's give them an alias. There are things like getChildItem, GCI, that I use on a regular basis to interrogate at the command line what exists inside. So rather than typing get-childitem, just GCI. It's a great thing. These are some commands that you can go off and start learning about and trying to understand. They're ones that Microsoft knows are frequently used. That's why they have created aliases for them and put it in by default. So that's a great starting place for you if you're just starting to learn PowerShell and want to have a good understanding. This is one place that you can start, and you can create your own aliases as you go as well. So, and I apologize, I do have to bounce. It's been great being here with you folks today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye. Thanks, Jason. All right. Do y'all? I'm going to go on just kind of some more demonstrating a few little fun things that I think would be useful. But in the meantime, do y'all have any input or questions? Use a test server. It's a good idea. Everything I've been doing is in a web, so I haven't been messing with like grand scale like service applications or breaking, anything on the server. So I'm pretty much staying in the web. So anything I break is on the site that I'm in for the stuff that I'm doing. Now you'll find people's scripts online where they're like enumerating through multiple webs and then enumerating through multiple lists and doing stuff. So be careful about that. But
Laura, that's a good warning in general.
Yeah.
There are people all over the internet that make PowerShell scripts that do all sorts of fun things.
Yes.
But be very wary about just downloading someone's PowerShell script and just running it on your farm, because you never know what it's going to actually do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, always test it. Always, or run it just line by line. Like go in here and just like select this line and run it. Let's select the next line. I'll run it.
And searching is your friend. Like look through the script, and if there's anything you don't recognize that it says it's doing, just search for it. You'll find the command on the internet with just a quick search.
Yeah. Here's the web list. Go ahead.
And kind of piggybacking off of Jason's comment, that there is no undo. I mean, you want to use the right tool for what you're doing. So when I work with our engineers, the engineers almost always work strictly in PowerShell, but I'll use a SharePoint management tool to avoid the undo part of PowerShell. So some of the tools that I use, if I want to, say, copy a list or library from one site to another, my tool will actually do that as a copy. So if I mess it up somehow and it doesn't transfer over correctly, I can always go back and redo it. Whereas if it's done in PowerShell, it's one and done. You just hope that it did it correctly. Otherwise, you're going to have to go through the whole backup and restore process. So it's a really powerful tool. That's why Laura's been working so hard on making changes to our provisioning script. But you do want to be very mindful of, you're using the right tool for what you're trying to complete. And that's why I'm going to stay away from it for a little bit, because I will probably break things.
And Lori just threw me an answer to Ian's question.
Yeah, Ian says, sorry, can I run this from a client without being an admin on the server just to manipulate the sites I'm an admin of?
So Lori Gowan responded, you can do some things remotely from your machine, but you would have to be made an admin in SharePoint. She just moved it.
Yeah, you can't just be a site collection admin. You'd have to be an actual SharePoint.
You have to be an admin in SharePoint by your admins on the server. So you would have to be a server admin, and then you can do it remotely.
And you also have to go into PowerShell and enable the ability to do remote commands in the first place.
Right. And you'll also be limited because you won't have permissions to like some locations on the server, like moving logs or stuff like that.
Cool. Good to know. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
So y'all want me to run my script just for fun?
Sure.
Yay! This
Our
is
last
nerdy.
30 seconds.
And so I keep messing with this script and then getting it to work fine, and then once it works fine, I'll be like, okay, I'm good, and then I break it again. So I could have easily have broken it again since yesterday when it was working fine, but I'm gonna so first thing I'm doing is asking for a site name, test.
Oh, you're not sharing your screen anymore.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Ta-da. Share. Okay. So as soon as I push play, it just asks me for my site name, and then these are all questions that are going to be like in a pretty little form that users are going to fill out. So let me get my URL that I'm going to have for that. Sites. Test 4, like that. Description, fun stuff. Site type, this is going to be team or intranet. I'll do a team site. doc library. This is where I told you I was going to have nice little friendly description for people, like letting them give their document library a pretty name. I'll call it chocolate cake. Let's do one word there. Calendar. So do I want a calendar on my site? Yes or no? Do I want a task list? Yes or no? Do I want contacts? Nah. And do I want discussion boards? Yeah, sure, whatever. So it's asking them all these questions, because these are questions that, I remember when I was a SharePoint server admin, and I was in charge of setting people's, creating people's site collections for them. Those were questions that I would ask them right off the bat. That way I could have the stuff in the site already, and them not have to kind of wonder where it was, or have to, because they're going to ask you, it's the next thing they're going to ask you anyway. So I debated, not even having that default document library in here at all, but because I want people to create different document libraries for different purposes, but so I debated not having it all, but I went ahead and I'm just going to ask them what do they want to call their first document library, and encourage them to create other ones. And another idea that I have is going to be to create like a little custom admin page with just the handful of very common things people do when they manage their SharePoint site. So, things like adding people to groups and changing the color theme, and just a couple things, because a lot of times when they go into site settings, they're completely overwhelmed. So wanted to make things a little simpler for them, because when you have just anyone that can go create a site, then you kind of have to, I hate to say dumb it down, but dumb it down, or just make it not too overwhelming for someone who's never had a site. So I'm waiting for this thing to go, but I'll let you guys go. We're 2 minutes over. I'm sure y'all all have other meetings and stuff to go to. Thanks for coming, Lori. Thanks for answering our question. But yeah, this script does a whole bunch of stuff. It does a bunch of fun stuff with permissions. Like, it adds a lot of different settings to some of the SharePoint groups, and does a lot of very specific things with permissions. It sets the time zone. The user is going to say what time zone they're in. It's going to set the time zone of the site for them. It's going to I even created a custom list template that it uploads into the site, so that when they click the Add an App button, that template's in there. And just kind of keep in mind that a lot of this stuff could be done by a developer with creating a custom site template and deploying that as a solution. But I didn't want to have to create a custom site collection template and deploy it as a solution, and then every time you have a little change to make, you'd have to go do all this very official, redeploying a solution and all this activating and all that mess. I just wanted to be able to go tweak my script whenever I need to. So that was just my choice, to be able to do it through a PowerShell script. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ann. All right, Stacy. Yeah, just try it on a test server. All right. Yeah, this thing's just taking a while. It's okay. I will stop sharing my screen. Usually doesn't take that long, but demo gods, right? Thanks, everybody, for coming. And if you all are going to SB TechCon in February in Austin, we will all be there, and we're going to have a live Power Hour there. It's very exciting. And next week, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but someone requested, I think it was Carlos, somebody on our site was mentioning that Office 365 admin's got a lot of new stuff that just came out, so maybe we'll do a demo of that. So I will see you all next time, every Wednesday at 11 Central. Bye.
Bye.